Welcome back. You're tuned into a Feel Good Breakfast Show. It's Expresso right here on SABC3. It's a Wednesday morning. So good to be hanging out with you. Thank you very much for tuning in. Now, load shedding, it is here to stay for the foreseeable future. Unfortunately, a reality that has seen many businesses suffer losses and has also forced many South Africans to change the way that they live on a daily basis. Now, this morning, certified parent coach Laura Markovitz joins us on the couch to talk about how load shedding has particularly affected families and their household routines and what parents can do to make the burden a bit lighter. Yes, Laura, thank you very much for joining us. I must say, thankfully, we haven't been hit by load shedding in the past while, which is great. But it is still, the risk is still there. Making light of load shedding, that's what we are talking about. And if I take a look at how it has affected me and my family, I mean, it's smaller things. The power goes off right when it's dinner time, or when you're supposed to be sitting down as a family, or when you're about to cook your meal for the family, when you're in a routine. Is this pretty much the way that affects most families in terms of, the routines that they have? So
exactly, I think that's the thing. It's an added dynamic that's affecting family dynamics out there. And, things can be busy, generally stressful, chaotic, that sort of thing. And now we're adding something else into the mix. And of course, load shedding, as you mentioned, is creating pressures in families, financial, businesses. It's had an impact in so many ways. And then there are the daily practicalities of things. Things like safety, traveling to and from places, kids traveling to school, parents coming home from work in the dark, those sorts of things. Having to think through how are kids studying? When are they doing their homework? How are they learning for things in the darkness? All those sorts of things. Cooking. So really the daily practicality. So it's added something in the mix that's really had to make us sit up and go, sure, how are we going to manage this stuff? It's
not always a very happy picture like you see there, but that is what we are striving towards.
Side is that can be.
It can
wasn't exactly what I described.
There we go, exactly. Not exactly. But listen, what can parents do to make life a little bit easier for themselves, within these periods of load shedding, if it is like on a constant basis? I mean, just to help us prepare, maybe to look for the positive in this darkness.
Well, I think that's the big thing. If we're working a little bit more towards this picture, maybe we can chat about that a bit later, is, we've got to be prepared. So we have to bring, whilst this has brought more chaos into our lives, it gives us the opportunity to think through how we can be prepared, how we can bring structures in place. So when are the kids going to be studying? Help facilitate that so that we have things in play, torches, candles, that we've got times, that we've looked at load shedding schedules so that we know when things are coming, so that it doesn't affect us in a chaotic way, and that we actually bring structures and planning into play, because that will help us in terms of putting things in place that are not going to allow it to add more chaos into the mix.
What would you say are some of the positives that we can get out or gain out of load shedding? Because I'm struggling personally as well, where I need to prepare work, and normally we have a load shedding schedule, from 8 o'clock onwards, and when I need to sit and prepare, I usually need the internet, and which just can't happen.
So frustrations aside, because I think it's important we acknowledge that the frustrations are there and the realities. The flip side is, of course, that actually there's less distraction, there's less noise, there's less light. So it's forcing us to actually hang out with each other. Families are reporting all the time that they are sitting and actually talking to each other. Graham earlier was saying how he had the most incredible conversation with his son by candlelight when the lights went off. So it's giving families an opportunity to actually take away some of the distraction, to hang out, to talk. There's been a real big demise of the family conversation that's happened to us generally.
Absolutely.
So this is giving us an opportunity to actually sit back, hang out, and also to help our families get perspective of how important electricity is, and what we do have, and what and how we have to actually protect that resource, and that it's not an endless supply.
Well, if there's one big positive out of that, it is the connection that the family can regain, and that is the only positive that I care about as well. Laura, thank you very much. We are going to be back with Laura in just a little bit, talking about how to make light of load shedding in your family.
It's my Feel Good Breakfast Show.
Welcome back. You are tuned into your Feel Good Breakfast Show Expresso right here on SABC3. Right now, we're continuing our parenting discussion. Now, earlier this morning, parent coach Laura Markovitz joined us to talk about how load shedding is forcing many families to change how they do things. And we're continuing that conversation right now with Laura. And Laura, thank you very much once again for joining us. Yes, interesting discussion. We haven't had load shedding for a while, but it could still be on the cards as well. Just to recap, how does load shedding make things a little bit more difficult, make life difficult for parents, specifically where we are in our routines, we're used to doing things, and all of a sudden we don't have power? And also, I mean, you never really know. Sometimes they run over the schedule or starts earlier.
Exactly.
How does it make life more challenging?
Yeah, well, it's taking predictability out of things.
Completely.
And it's changing our routines, changing our structures, it's changing how we do things. It's adding a bit more chaos into our lives. And as we were chatting about earlier, yes, that's incredibly stressful and it is an upheaval in our lives. But the good news is that there are some unintended consequences that do happen from that. And that's quite an important thing for us to hold on to, is it's forced us, sort of, all of us to think about, well, how do we problem solve around this?
Yeah.
How do we get through this without letting it completely destroy us, without kids using it every day as an excuse of, well, I couldn't do my homework because it was load shedding. We've actually had to adapt.
Improvise.
And sometimes having to adapt and improvise is quite a useful thing for us and for our kids.
I mean, we've had such nice moments as a family, you know, when there's no electricity to charge little iPads, no Wi-Fi, no TV, no lights, no nothing. And, you know, what do you do? And then all of a sudden, you're forced into the space where you are connecting with your family on a different level completely. And you realize this is actually nice. This is actually beneficial for my family. This is what we should be doing. So how do we retain that back to basics kind of scenario that we have, that we kind of establish within the load shedding scenario, but, you know, going forward and continue to nurture that?
Well, I think that's such an important thing. You know, with anything, if we are able to be reflective and to be able to look at, well, what have we taken from this and what has actually been useful for our family, and we don't just go back to living our lives as we did, or not connecting or not making those spaces, then it's completely lost. If we can really take something from it of saying, well, this is important stuff. How do we make sure that we retain these spaces beyond a load shedding schedule, but that we make sure that our families have the time to connect? So we bring things in where we are saying, regardless of there being electricity or not, cell phones, devices are off limits during dinner time. We make sure that when we come home at night that actually we're not just sitting on the TV, we're not just sitting on iPads and phones and that sort of thing, that we are actually making time.
It happens a lot.
This is not theoretical. Absolutely, it happens a lot. So it's so important that we're really taking from this and that we're maintaining these spaces. And it takes effort. So I don't say it flippantly, you know, just make those spaces. It really, as we've had to adapt to load shedding and learning how to problem solve, how to think through how we're going to do things without the lights on, how we're going to get through that. Let's think through how we're going to do things, even if there is electricity, so that we are making sure we're connecting with our families, because that has really been affected more generally, regardless of electricity or no electricity.
Absolutely, and I think we need to really hone in on that, the time spent, the quality time spent as a family. You know, lights or no lights, it doesn't really matter. Be more mindful of your family. Laura, thank you very much for adding some of those tips. Really appreciate you and your advice. Always have yourself a brilliant week further. And also you can let us know, what are some of the big positives that come out in your family with regards to all the load shedding that we've been seeing, and what has really been a turning point or realization moment for you within your family. You can connect with us on our social media pages, Expresso Morning Show, SABC3 on Facebook. Use that hashtag Expresso Show.